Hello, I am Budoy, and welcome to another episode of TakingCast. Today I am here with Francisco Filho, Application Support Manager at the Edenred Group, and we're going to talk about ITSM, operations management, how we bring the best IT practices, especially now in V4, bringing a vision both focused on processes and more on practices, really managing to see how I deliver more value to the business than not simplifying, but rather than just following processes, thinking about how that really brings the result. So today we see it, Francisco, as a great tool for the digital transformation of companies. Having good operations management. So I'd like you to talk a little more about that. But first, please introduce yourself.
Perfect, Budo. First, I would like to thank Taking for the invitation. It is an honor for me to be able to talk about this topic. It is a topic that greatly inspires me. I am Francisco. I am the father of two princesses, Maria Rafaela, who is 9 years old. She is turning 9 this Saturday, and Giovanna, who is 23 years old. I kiss for them, and my wife, Andrea, too. A little more about me. In my personal life, I love playing tennis. My daughter Giovanna and I are always competing in some tournaments, even as my spare time. My favorite hobby is playing tennis. I am passionate about tennis, not just about tennis. Also running. I play volleyball. And my daughter, Giovanna, she always follows around there in some tournaments. We even end up facing each other in some tournaments in Ambarato because she always wins, Dad, right? I end up letting her. Just joking about it. Anyway, that's it. I have been working at the Edenred Group for 6 years. Today I am responsible for the management and governance of the AMS shared service operation, involving the financial ecosystem, the entire financial ecosystem, also the non-financial and compliance parts, and also the RPA platform. Today we have around 40 applications that need to run 24/7. About 500 integrations interfacing with systems. Legacy of SBU. So it is a challenge today to keep all of this running 24/7 with very high availability and speed. This is a critical success factor for our business.
Francisco, man, you have a very successful career, right? Both at Edenred and elsewhere. And if you were to talk about, other experiences you've had that are worth sharing, tell me a bit about your journey.
Perfect. My journey started in banking. I worked for 9 years at Unibanco in banking automation. I learned a lot there. Great leaders. I learned a lot. It was a dream. I had to work with banking automation. And after that, I was invited. I went to fulfill a dream of working in aviation, where I stayed for 15 years. At the airline, I was called to, initially I joined as a senior systems analyst and left there as CTO after 15 years in aviation. For me, it was quite an experience. I am passionate about aviation. I was lucky to have the opportunity to work with the aircraft engineering and maintenance system, where the control of aircraft has to be very refined. There are various standards. As you know, the standards of aviation involve many aspects, both regarding airworthiness and around infrastructure. In other words, there is a whole technical maintenance control. Both in the preventive part and in the ongoing part, which is the day-to-day, it's what we call troubleshooting. And I have the pleasure to say, the pride to say, that we implemented a solution in one of the airlines that was chosen as the best system of MRO, Mentors and Repair and Overhaul, which is the maintenance system of aircraft, which involves engineering, maintenance, and supply chain, integrated with flight control. So for me, it was a system that demands great accuracy in implementation, from the design of the service system to daily operations. At the time, VASP, Aviação Real de São Paulo, the group, VASP was known as the best aircraft maintenance model worldwide. And then having as partners the main engineers in aviation, I won't mention names because it would be unfair to do so.
I forgot someone, right?
Because they were all my teachers in imparting knowledge. And I had the pleasure of staying, for example, in the factory, in the hangar, understanding the processes, following the daily activities of the people, working, and then trying to create alternatives to improve the process on a day-to-day basis. It was fantastic. I remember that in '97, if I'm not mistaken, I created the first little robot, even though the term RPA didn't exist yet, but I created the first robot, for instance, to do integration on the low-level platform with mainframe.
Francisco, when we talk about operation management, it is crucial, as you said. It is super important for the operation, for the organization, to understand how it works, what these vital signs are that it has. So always monitoring and evaluating oneself is a fundamental part of really having the deployment there. All the processes, doing configuration management, problem management, incidents, so that you keep, as we usually say, keep the lights on. In your view, when we talk about ITSM, I see a lot of people saying that, man, when I talk about ITSM, I'm talking about IT. But I increasingly see us taking these practices, these good practices, best practices, and applying them in the management of everyday services. So, for example, if I talk about an operation, for instance, of accounts payable, receivable, the process itself of the operation, not really IT service management, managing service, but simply an SM doing service management, managing the operation. Does that make sense? What do you think of this rambling of mine?
Look, I can cite AD radio as a case. Today, it is a critical success factor for our business. As I mentioned in the opening, it's high availability, high performance, all of this aligned with compliance and information security guidelines. For that, we have to a great service management model, ITSM, based on best practices. From ITSM, and then I am including IT. I am also incorporating into this model ISO 27001, which is in information security, to ensure that this mission is achieved efficiently and effectively. For example, our ITSM model today, of course, is a set of policies and practices and operational procedures we have to manage as efficiently and economically as possible to ensure that these objectives are achieved. I can mention Edenred today as a great case. Today I can say that 99% of our incidents are generated automatically. by our observability tools. So what happens? Every time an incident occurs, we ask ourselves, the team asks why that incident. And if it was not generated automatically by the tool, why was it not generated? And then there's a whole task of checking what was the reason that caused that incident, and if it was not generated automatically. And then a procedure is already
feedback
created.
And create.
It already feeds the tool so that the next time it happens, if it happens, it is created automatically. And then in this case, taking this tool segue, event management, for example, we, from the conception of that service, we already include, it's already part of our change management culture. Any service that is going to be implemented, it has to have that the event part, event management, is also designed.
It's
whether it's just an alert event, something simple, and that it can generate an incident afterwards, or depending on the severity of that anomaly, it will automatically generate an incident. And then, depending on the severity,
that's what I presume.
What is a crisis? It is unavailability that can impact the business immediately. There is already a procedure for the team. They already meet in a room, and it's automatic. The SWAT happens. The whole room takes place with everyone. In less than 5 minutes, people are already in the room to identify what happened. Re-establish the service as quickly as possible. Today, ITSM practices in service management are very well defined. Both in incident management, event management, problem management, change management. So we have a very well aligned team. And one important thing that I think is a critical success factor today, for example, for Edenred today, is everyone thinking like an owner. That is, each team, each collaborator, each member of that team, whether in infrastructure, in application, or in the business itself, they are thinking like an owner. That is, they are protagonists for think like an owner about what needs to be improved. That is, our incident management process's number one mission is what? To restore the service as quickly as possible so as not to impact the business. In parallel, there is the problem management process, which is to identify the cause in a very well qualified manner. The goal is to identify exactly what the cause of the problem was. Of course, there are some techniques. The one we use the most today is the 5 times 15.
Yes, because that's it.
And there is also the XCal, but today what we really use the most is the 5-15. Normally, by the third question, you already know what the cause is, which is very well qualified. And of course, event management. Event management is a great ally of ours in not letting us anticipate a potential problem in the operation. So today, our ITSM model it works very well. It's very well aligned. We have several teams. So what happens when we talk in a complex environment? And here, when I say complex, it's not in a negative sense. Today, any operation that uses a hybrid model, on-premise platforms, in the cloud, in-house, or collocation, that there is a great potential to generate incidents, anomalies. That's normal. And for that, there must be an infrastructure, there must be a very well-refined and robust ITC model with everyone. It's co-creating, and that is not only in the technical part, in problem solving, that is first restore the service as quickly as possible and already looking at a possible improvement. Because if you are looking at this thinking like an owner, I own this service. In other words, everyone thinking with this mindset, and Edenred has a lot of this, the teams, both of infrastructure culture, the culture at Edenred, it's cultural. So any employee who joins Edenred today in IT, and not just in IT, in any business aspect too. So there is an entire onboarding model, onboarding process that people, both in business and IT, regardless if it's infrastructure, whether it's IT security or whether it's application, people, they are cultured to think like an owner, integrate. That is, they are empowered. From now on,
right.
You are a partner, skin in the game. That's it. So, like, this is really good, man, because when you manage this way in the governance of a complex operation like this, you bring everyone into the same team, right? With the same mindset, victory is certain. As the great star Michael Jordan says, talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships.
Francisco, now that we already have an idea of the importance and how crucial ITSM is for operations, for organizations, specifically thinking about the best practices we have today, man, we know that today we are talking about change management, incident management, events, the financial part, configuration management, of course. What more can you tell me about these best practices today, including making a comparison with version 4 with ITv4?
Perfect. Great question. I will always mention, I could even cite other companies I've been with, but I think OneKZ and Red today, I think it's what is most aligned with Atio's best practices. For example, Atio 4. That greatly helps us in our challenge to keep our operations stable. Today, for example, in our STM model, we incorporate very well, we are already using very well the best practices of IT4. IT4 today came with a focus on agility, focus on value, using the agile mindset, that is agility. Practicality, optimization, automation, everything else. So while they are concerned with the delivering, with making deliveries safely, she also cares about not making the deliveries rigid. For example, in version 3, for example, of ITIL, she was very focused on the process. So we had, for example, some checklists that until those documents were all filled out, the change management process would not approve going live to production. So already in this model, using the bias of version 4 with an agile entity, agility, and focus on value, we document what is extremely necessary. That is, for some deliveries, we document what is necessary. There are some deliverables that must be completed to avoid hindering support down the line. And for other deliverables, we provide only what's necessary in the document. With this, we make deliveries focused on the business, but with security. I think we can emphasize a little here some practices of ATIO4. In fact, ATIO4 changed the name from process to practice exactly to remove that rigid process bias.
What in my name?
Today, it is practice with a focus on business value focus. If there is a practice that in some way is making a delivery rigid, it is bureaucratizing some delivery because requires some additional document. No, we need to look with the mindset of an owner, with the feeling of ownership, adjust and deliver in a way that does not harm the business. What else can I say about this? The incident management part, then, important. The incident management part, problem management and event management. Today we know that the great mission of incident management is to provide the service as quickly as possible so that it does not impact the business. High availability, exactly. With a focus on high availability and, of course, subsequently, hand in hand with incident management in the problem management process, which is concerned with identifying the root cause X and find the root cause solution. Of course, this process is also very concerned with in addition to identifying the root cause, it is also concerned with identifying a workaround solution until the final solution is implemented. This is very important. Another important thing about this problem management process, as the art itself suggests, is that it says, look, you have to act reactively, which is when there is a more critical problem. You already address the root cause and solve a problem reactively. You have to address that problem. Otherwise, if it happens again, we will obstruct the business. And also have the act proactively, that is, you analyze trends, scalability as the business grows. What kind of improvement can I apply to some in some event so that this problem does not happen tomorrow or the day after, and it is scalable so that in 2 or 3 months
through observability grows, and more efficient event management, you can manage less critical events to avoid making that prediction. I wouldn't be too wrong to say that P1, there is always a number of lower criticality events occurring. So it is unlikely that you would go from stability to a P1 suddenly. Probably this P1, we can handle events of lower criticality to foresee that this P1, for example, will happen.
Where I will handle it in a way, well, without impacting this high availability. Perfect. It's actually good, your comment about severity in P1. There on the internet, for example, we usually classify an incident as P1, P2, P3, and P4. P1 is that critical incident that a fundamental service for the business, it stopped everyone. So it's a crisis. Everyone, in 5 minutes, everyone is in the room, the huddle, to restore the service as quickly as possible. Another type of criticality is P2. It didn't stop everyone, but we have a criterion there that up to N affected, N clients affected, it's also a P2 that there must be immediate action. The agility to recover this service is as great as for P1. Although it is a P2, and we created another one, which is the P3. It is not intermediate, it can be just one incident. He is impacting, it could be that he impacts just one client. And this might not necessarily need to be an incident. It could be even just any service, a request. For example, today, I can say with great pride that now our operation today is very stable.
Very little.
In incident, P1,
There's P13
very
already.
few P2, but there is already a certain amount, and this P3 doesn't necessarily mean it's an incident. It could be a request someone made. It could be a registration error that is not an incident, a registration of some client that was wrong, and you couldn't send, for example, a batch payment to an external client by the bank's window time. Although it is not an incident, it requires immediate action.
Some, I think it works, but...
In other words, it has weight. Its weight is equal to P1. In other words, if you do not act within a specific time, it will impact my client. It doesn't matter if it's just one client or 1,000. So we created this category for Brazil today. We adopted this because we know we are with our clients daily. We know the impact this causes on the business. So I even joke that we are like the guardian of the operation. We are the guardian of the operation. For example, I am the guardian of the operation, for example, of my application tower. And we also have, and I have as not an assistant, but as my partner, who also thinks as a guardian of the operation, the people who work in the infrastructure area, they help me to restore our application service. We have this teamwork, everyone thinking like an owner, so we don't impact the business. One important thing about incidents, today we have, in the previous block, we have a very small number of incidents. This is thanks to collaborative work during the project phase. I think project delivery is the model of the implementation of projects at IDR is very robust. We have, as I mentioned, all our partners think like owners. So each one is a protagonist to do the best. In other words, the goal of each one is to implement the service in production with the least possible error. So today we have a great partnership in this sense. The tests are very well done, and this causes, that's why the number of incidents in production today is very small. And furthermore, in the change management process, for example, especially in the part that involves the digital transformation project, innovation and digital transformation, it is very well tested and validated by us in operations who are support guardians to ensure nothing that could put the operation at risk enters. So, for example, we have a checklist, for example, before going into production, before he takes it for approval by GIMOT with the committee, we go through our AMS governance filter to know if, for example, monitoring was implemented in this service. This service here integrates with other critical systems of the company. What types of monitoring have been implemented? Did you leave something without implementing? Is it possible to deploy now? Is there risk? And even if something is left out, you will have some time of high-tech care that we have there. Of course, we determine together with the project team and us in operations what the default time of high-tech care will be that we will follow. Everyone together implemented. There is a war room there, an old room, which during the period of post-go leave, which is the hype care. Every day there is a daily meeting about how the day went. We had an incident, didn't we? If we did, what was the cause? It's normal for that to happen. It's normal. And then by the end of the hype care period, we have our service fully stabilized. Usually we have something important that happens. We do, for example, you said a hypercare period. For instance, I'm going to launch an important service here. It is important, and we will agree here on a 15-day hypercare period, for example. It may be that this is a default. We set a default, 15 days or less or more, and it may be that during this hypercare period, we can anticipate the delivery, that is the closing of the project. I do not necessarily need to wait the 15 days because is super stabilized. The first week had very few occurrences. They were already addressed at the cost, and there's no need to reach 15 days. You can close the project. Let's pass the baton, and we'll continue with the operation here. And there are also situations that he can go through. It's difficult to happen. We defined that hype period as 15 days. Things are still happening. Critiques, let's extend. That can happen. A few times this has happened. It also depends a lot.
And also a lot from the availability of key users, right? Sometimes you're in the middle of a Black Friday, you're in the middle of a specific date, and it happens that these 15 days end up being extended, right? But I think it's interesting when you bring up the issue of RDM, right? And how today the partners, including Taking, right? How today the partners are already from the beginning of the cycle of development, already understand these guardrails and guidelines of the Edenred environment, right? And already anticipate this, right? So if in the past we had RDMs that seemed like an endless discussion, right? About frameworks, about best practices, right? No, you put ternary if statements were not, should us, so things like that. Not today, right? Today, from the beginning, from the reception, from the kickoff, it is already developed according to these guardrails and guidelines, which makes it more streamlined and lean, I'll say. So, the process of change management and configuration during the release management. So if it's reached that point, it's because really all the milestones, let's call them that, or all the validations of all the releases are in accordance with what's necessary, so that it passes smoothly in the release management. I think it's one of the ideas we've had since DevOps started being discussed in 2004. 2005 is making this shift left-right. From the beginning, you make it clear that you have to follow those, I'll call them guardrails, right? The limits, right? And the guidelines, which are really the practices that have to be used, right?
That have to be used. A key point you mentioned that is worth add to our conversation about change management. For example, from today, if we, as the guardian of the operation, guardian of the AMS operation, we participate from the beginning of the conception of a project, even to understand what lies ahead, to understand what kind of support we will provide, what awaits us in the future. Team, check the team. So we establish whole governance around this. And one important thing also during the conception, during the specification, the service specification encompasses a series of important things which is fundamental for the success of a delivery. Of course, from the correct definition of the design, architecture, and everything else, monitoring, service catalog support, what type of incident can occur. And also not just incidents, what type of event can happen, and what the service level agreement is to understand this. And this has to be very aligned with the business. One important thing that happens a lot in our business today, we have plenty of external partners, external products. We have many innovation projects, digital transformation, where we have external partners. Part of the solution comes externally. We integrate with external partners, which integrate with our ERP in real time, 24/7, and we always need to clearly define the type of service catalog, the type of internal support. If that type of anomaly, it can happen outside business hours, and if that happens, does the business need immediate action, or can it wait until the next day? So all of this has to be very well aligned with everyone. This is our practice. Today, we, as guardians of the operation, we don't let anything slide. Everything has to be very well aligned with the business. And one important thing, very important, is about the service level agreement with the user. And it's something that when you are going to implement a solution, a new service for the user, of course, you will know what type of anomaly will occur, the event about the problem, what the service level agreement is. There's an understanding, but we can't say it's set in stone and that it has to be that. It is the time frame you will set is to have an initial idea of how much time the user, our client, needs to be served. It could be that they say, look, if you serve me within 8 hours, that's fine. It won't impact my business today, but it could be that in the future, this SLA time of 8 hours is no longer the PDCA, right? Here comes the PDCA. We'll have to keep adjusting it. That's exactly what I wanted to get to. The PDCA will arrive, meaning we have to have an approach, right? With the user very close daily, I won't say daily, but weekly, monthly, a feedback, a follow-up with the user to understand what his operation indicators are, right? What are the offenders? What are the improvement insights, right? We have a very specialized team that knows not just technically the environment, but also the process. And then we have an approach, we have a very strong partnership with users to weekly think, co-create, what can I improve? I see here that 80% of our tickets are not incidents, they are requests. Invariably, it's small improvements that if you make for the user, we will reduce many calls. So today, our problem management process that are not necessarily incidents, but he will also look with an ownership perspective for the business. Look, user, I see that you are frequently repeating a type of request to generate a specific report. If we make a small improvement,
you will significantly reduce a change in an existing ERP screen, for example, if it does not have adequate training for users to utilize it, will certainly increase your volume of calls due to requests, people having questions, right? So like, oops, the screen changed here, man, open it because I have to issue a note, I have to perform a process, something, and the screen changed too. So is what, as you mentioned. So maybe not having the proper training for users on something that for us in the day-to-day operations seems simple, right? Will cause your volume to increase, and naturally this should affect your SLAs, of course. So
your service level agreements. And something normal is suddenly a user opening a request, suddenly a new user who joined the company, and it's normal to happen. It happens in any company. They open a ticket thinking it is some error, and later when the analyst goes to handle it, it's not an error, and already a refresher. Even on the whole, normally our users, we have a very close partnership in the onboarding process. They are trained, very well trained, and all of them in their respective business areas, they are trained in their process anyway, but there is always one thing or another that slips past and ends up opening a ticket. But then our analysts are trained to say, look, this is not a problem. They go there, guide, and the person already gets it. And so this partnership with users, it has to be very quick. We try not to. We cannot overcomplicate anything. Look, this here, we go there and guide. Look, this here. Before opening a ticket, sometimes Our analysts are trained. Look, if he opened the ticket and you saw that it was not a problem, call on Teams, explain, look, this is not a problem, let's go, I will teach you, and that's it. This collaboration is...
Now this is crucial, right? Suddenly you might even already purge a ticket, something, it no longer counts in your database of tickets. Very good, very good. Francisco, the topic is incredible. We still have a lot to talk about, but our time, it is short, right? So I wanted to discuss a point with you that catches my attention, right? We talk about the cloud and everyone wants to go to the cloud, and the cloud is high availability. The cloud has no data center issues, theoretically, right? Then we talk about AI, right? Wow, let's be more efficient with AI. Let's increase productivity, right? And we know that at the bottom line, all of this has a cost, right? And then it makes us think, how do I manage this best? How do I evaluate these costs, right? And we come to FinOps, right? What is your experience? What have you been experiencing in terms of transforming observability, managing to bring financial management into the operation, and then, yes, talking about FinOps?
Great question, Budol. FinOps is a team. It's a fundamental team that deals with cloud cost and service management. You see, this issue of migrating to the cloud, it's excellent. We know that everything there works quickly. Everything is fast in the cloud. Now, one important thing, when implementing services in the cloud, you have to be concerned with the costs this will bring to the company. You have to make a good management and governance plan for the services you will use in the cloud. I've heard in some workshops that I have participated in about FinOps, how to manage cloud services. So I have seen, for example, people saying, wow, when it was on-premise, our costs were much lower than they are today in the cloud. But what happens, the implementation from some people with whom I talked, brainstormed, exchanged experiences, there was no, for example, a plan of what are the cost, what is the cost limit that you can set in your management plan, for example. Today, for example, we are implementing a model. I am redesigning this management and governance model so that we can maximize usage from service to cloud, that is using the service efficiently and effectively. The FinOps Foundation provides some important techniques that I have seen many people using. We are also using them. We are starting to use them very strongly, which is to use your model as efficiently as possible. That is to maximize the use of the service effectively. For example, tagging the services. Like automate, for example, you have a service that doesn't need to run 24/7. So during business hours, yes, you can increase the consumption of that service to provide good performance for your client. But if it's not going to be used outside business hours or will be used less, you have to tag this. You have to optimize and automate through artificial intelligence. That is, you can create a threshold, for example, from 1 hour to another. I can automatically lower the consumption for that. And also in sporadic cases, if you need to exceed that usage, you can trigger an alert to governance so that governance can immediately go and extend the resources to avoid impacting the business. But this is sporadic, it is an exception. I think it is a relatively new thing. Many companies are just moving from on-premise to cloud. And this cost management model in the cloud needs to be continuously improved, continuous improvement. And just like the team in the on-premise model, they have to be very engaged and with a sense of ownership. The team must be engaged with owner empowerment. I need to know the level of consumption I can use for this cloud service and manage it continuously, weekly, monthly, and see where improvements are needed. I think tagging is like taking, for example, that service, that database service from storage and other services. What is the necessary usage for the business? Do I need this? Don't I need this? You have to reach this level, and to reach this level, the whole team needs to be walking hand in hand, because if you don't do this, there has to be someone there with the head of owner of that management and governance process, and have them in the team of, it's like a committee, a small committee that has a focal point for each type of business service, infrastructure, application, and making it happen, managing and governing so that improvement continues to occur, and that you can maximize the use of resources at the lowest possible cost. In other words, use the service efficiently, responsibly, and efficiently.
Francisco, so we've reached the end of our episode, right? Unfortunately, time is short. We have a team. Invitation stands for us to talk about other things, to go further, right? To better detail topics like FinOps. Just FinOps would require a whole episode for us to discuss. Thank you for sharing your amazing journey with us. And thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Marvelous. It was a really nice chat. I want to thank Take once again for the invitation, and also extend my gratitude on behalf of Edenred. Take is one of our special partners in innovation projects of digital transformation, where Take has been our long-term partner. It has greatly contributed to the success of our deliveries. And here is our special thanks to you, to Taik, to Marco Romero for this partnership. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts to Taik.
Thank you very much from the heart to Take Edenred. We have already had a long journey together, and there's still a lot ahead, right? So really thank you for accepting our invitation, and you who are tuned in, stay attentive to the next episodes of TakingCast on YouTube and Spotify. Once again, thank you very much.